Good morning, everyone. If you could grab your seats. Good morning. My name is Laura Tenyas, for those that I have not met, and I am this year's ASA president. Very excited to be here. My current role is I am the Kyrene School District Superintendent. Very honored to be serving ASA and all of you this year. So we're going to get started right away with our meeting, and I believe first I am inviting up Miss Lori Bow. Did I say that correctly? From Solution Tree, and this is our meeting sponsor for the day.
Good morning, everyone. I am Lori Baugh from Solution Tree, and I'm the new Director of Educational Partnerships here for Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada. I'm an educator at heart, a former classroom teacher, and a curriculum specialist in both the Deer Valley and Cave Creek school districts, as well as worked in the Team CFA Charter School Foundation. Little background here, Darren. Oh, his name isn't up. Darren couldn't make it today, unfortunately, so I am here. And if you all would like to join me in just a little event here, have you ever been to a workshop or an event with Solution Tree? If you have, please stand up. That was my expectation. Thank you. Go ahead and have a seat. So I won't go into much of what Solution Tree is or what we do. However, we are a trusted provider for the past 25 years or so for K-12 professional development. And I come today stating it all started with a book. Everything starts with a book at Solution Tree because we provide workshops, events, and resources for all of your solutions. If you would like to scan the QR code on the screen, I do have a gift for you, a complimentary book. There are 3 choices. Behavior Solutions is not here, but all means all. Inclusive Practices for All Students. Culture Keepers, a leadership book for healthy school culture. And Implement with Impact. Wherever you are in your journey, I highly recommend that you choose one of these books, complimentary, on behalf of Solution Tree today. There's a Google form that you'll fill out, and we will have those sent to you, whatever address you choose. And I want to say thank you. I want to meet more of you. I know some of you here, but I look forward to meeting more of you, hearing where you are on your journey and your school district as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Miss Erin Hart from the Governor's Office with an update.
Good morning, friends. Happy Friday. I'm so glad it's Friday and we're leading off to a 3-day weekend, so win-win. My name is Erin Hart. I work for Governor Hobbs and have the pleasure of working on higher ed and early ed and other issues like workforce development. But so good to be here with you today. I just wanted to take a minute to share with you that as we're kicking off the new school year, we're also kicking off the new FAFSA year. So FAFSA, as you all know, is really important for students to help unlock financial aid for their beyond high school. And so what I wanted to do is come give you a quick sneak preview of some things that are going to be coming out next week, because we'd love to have you all involved. So FAFSA is on track to open on October 1st, which is great. We are hearing from beta testing that's happening in Arizona that things are going well with the system. It's working well. It's taking 10 or 15 most students to complete, which is great. Great progress from the past couple of years. And the state, every year we set a new goal for FAFSA completion. So in the next couple of weeks, the FAFSA Coalition will have a symposium that we will announce the new state goal for this year. It's ambitious and we'll need every high school and every college and university's partnership to be able to reach it. So that is coming soon. And then to complement it, next week there will be a new campaign that will come out from the FAFSA Coalition and the Arizona Board of Regents called 50 by Fall. The whole idea is to partner with school districts and individual high schools to be able to increase FAFSA completion to 50% by the end of December. And so the FAFSA Coalition is going to package together a number of resources, tools, TA, best practices, one-on-one support, anything you might need to be able to reach that goal. And for schools that are eligible, there is also some financial incentives that can be received on the back end. So if you hit that goal, the Board of Regents and FAFSA Coalition will have some small grants that they're able to give back to schools to help keep that momentum going. And that could be used to support your school counselors, your school activities or events or opportunities to keep going and increase FAFSA completion even more. So if you are a Title I school, if you are a high school who didn't reach 40% FAFSA completion last year, or if you have a FAFSA peer coach, you'll be getting a letter from the governor and the chair of the Board of Regents next week. We'd love to have you involved, love to help support you in your FAFSA efforts, and happy to answer any questions that you might have. Also, if you're not a part of the FAFSA Coalition, you should totally sign up, and I'm glad to help you do that if you like. So I'm happy to follow up with Paul and the team if that's helpful. But just wanted to wish you all a great new school year and also offer support with FAFSA as we move on over the school year. So thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
And now I would like to invite up Mr. Bruce DePlanty, the Assistant Executive Director from the State Board of Education.
Is there a clicker? Oh, perfect. Okay. Good morning. Thanks for having me here on behalf of the State Board and Executive Director Sean Ross. Hope your school year is off to a great start, and glad to be here today to give you some updates. We can skip ahead a couple slides, probably one more. There was no board meeting in July, so August is a busy month. It includes the board meeting and a retreat, but it also included a study session on A through F. And so it seems like we're entering a period of A through F and assessment, kind of that season. I'll talk a little bit more about the assessments, but the TACs have been charged with kind of meeting state statute and start indicator scoring. And when they started to approach that, a lot of questions came up because the summative system was built as a summative system, but you start to break out the pieces. You know, as Sean likes to say, it's like we were asked to build a cake, built a great cake. But now you've got to start to pull out the components, the eggs, the mix, the water, and grade those. And you start to get some other questions and some issues. So the TACs are wrestling with that. And so we decided to put some study sessions on. The hope is the board gets a study session or two. They kind of decide on a path that they want to direct the TACs to. They're going to direct the TACs to do more research and modeling. And then the TACs will come back to the board with a decision. So it's going to be a slow roll with a lot of opportunity for modeling so that any changes are, no unintended consequences. The first study session was August 12th. There's a recording you can watch. It was on growth and proficiency. It was really beefy, but it was really good. There'll be another study session this month. Well, sorry, we're not in September yet. We're really close. On September 22nd at 1 p.m. It's virtual. That'll be a kind of growth and proficiency round 2 because the board needed that. But if you get the slide deck, there's a link for the recording of the August one. Go ahead to the next slide. Oh, you already got it. So the board meeting this month included presentations on dual enrollment by Helios in the ASU Decision Center. Great presentation, confirms what we know. Dual enrollment, kids that take dual enrollment really have a better success in college and the like. But it was a great presentation by that crew. Lit Plan 2030 was presented by Terry Clark and Linda Burrows from ADE. I know you're going to hear from Terry Clark in just a minute, so I'm not going to go into any of the details on that. The board also heard on Gifted and Talented from Catherine Oliver from ADE and Zell Fowler, a gifted educator, and she's also from the Arizona Alliance of Black School Educators. But it was a great presentation to the board on gifted and talented. And then the presentations on the board meeting concluded with the A through F presentation from Linda Burrows and Jessica Mueller, kind of updating from the study sessions and some more information on, especially on where we're going. It's going to be kind of the same road as we've always followed. Cut scores will be coming up next month as an intro, and then the board will adopt that. But just kind of how we're looking at that. Next. Also the assessment survey update. So the current assessments are adopted through the 2027 implementation. So we're starting early at developing what those the RFP looks like. And so there's lots of surveys going out. There was one round already with some feedback. So they discussed, that's the discussion they had at the board meeting. There's more surveys coming out to the field because on the table is, formative's aligned to the summative, adaptive is kind of part of the conversation. There's lots of kind of big dreaming going on about what assessments could look like. If Sean were here, he'd probably say, that really is focused on that K-8 kind of piece because the high school ones are kind of confined by statute to nationally college entrance exams. They have to be aligned to that. So there's not a ton of wiggle room on that. There's a question around the science exam being rolled in rather than being a separate exam. So I know enough to be dangerous, but the discussions are starting to happen. My next slide, the August retreat was on Tuesday. All of those were recorded as well. We had an open meeting law. We finished up with an open meeting law. That's just riveting, but it was actually a pretty good presentation. We did do educator discipline, kind of talking about the professional practice as part of that series leading to board action, and then School Finance 101. Chris Brown, the new CFO, I think that's his title, from ADE, gave a great presentation to the board. We're just prepping them for what hopefully won't happen, but we know with declining enrollments that there may be some struggles that may be in front of the board. So we want them to be more up to speed on school finance. And then coming up, as I mentioned, September 22nd at 1 p.m., we're going to have another A through F study session on growth and proficiency. The plan is following growth and proficiency, we'll start attacking the other indicators and getting that in front of them, CCRI and the like and everything else. Future eighth, just talked about that. SPED graduation presentation. So we know that we hit the field a little bit with a potential rule change in August for SPED graduation and around transition services. That didn't make the August board meeting. That rule change kind of has been pulled for now. That is now going to be an ADE presentation in September, talking about not only the SPED subcommittee implementation, but also the notion around transition services and students who've met. It's around students who've met graduation requirements but haven't had transition services, and what does IDEA allow and what's funded and that type of thing. And then there'll be the A through F cut score presentation as information only. We do that because if the board adopted it, then you get FOIA'd for your scores. So we kind of had that conversation and they adopted a month down the road. That was a lot. It was quick. Any questions? Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for that update. Next, I'd like to invite up Ms. Michelle Udall, Deputy Associate Superintendent for the Arizona Department of Education update. Oh,
okay. All right. Had some other stuff I was going to show you, but I guess I'm not going to. And hopefully my presentation got sent, but I'm not entirely sure. I've been out of town. I just came back from Alaska day before yesterday. So, but I have several updates for you. The first one is about essential standards. How many of you have heard of the essential standards rollout? Okay, good. We have designated some essential standards. At least 50% of the assessment will be based on those standards. So as you move forward, it's really important to understand what they are, how they should be impacting your student learning and your teaching, your scope and sequences. So I was going to share the website with you. Um, if you go to ADE and search for essential standards, you'll find that there are a bunch of workshops coming up. Some of them have already passed. There are, let me look at the dates real quick. I have it on my screen, but want to make sure I get the right ones. There is an Essential Standards workshop coming up on September 5th. That one is already completely booked, but there is a new one that has been added on September 8th. And then one on October 2nd. So if you're looking to get some more information on Essential Standards, highly recommend you sign up for one of those. Then we are also going to be adding an asynchronous version of it, an online Essential Standards course. So that will be available online soon as well. So as you need to take your teachers and your staff through Essential Standards, there will be additional. The microphone just cut. Okay. Okay. So that's the Essential Standards. The next one is Navi. How many of you have used Navi so far? Okay, we did secure it for this next year. So Navi will be free for anyone who would like to use it again this school year. We are also developing a couple of benchmarks, a fall and a spring benchmark. This year it will be just the schools in improvement that have access to that. But if you have any schools in improvement, they will have access to those benchmarks in the fall and the spring. If you're unaware, Navi is Pearson's formative assessment that aligns exactly with the summative assessment that your students will take in the spring. So that's a really big bonus to have formative assessments that are perfectly aligned. Should really help gauge learning throughout the school year for your students and your teachers. Let's see if I missed anything on here. Nope, that was it. And they will also be aligned to those essential standards. So as you need to figure out how students are doing on those standards throughout the school year, you'll have real-time feedback if you use that. The next one is Conmigo and the Direct Student Services. If you're unaware, there's an application right now for a grant for Direct Student Services. The options for that, one of them is to use Conmigo. Conmigo is only $10 per student. It includes some lesson planning tools that use some AI to help prepare lesson standards or lesson plans that are standards based. It also includes a lot of tools for one-on-one tutoring for students to help them, particularly in math, but it also has some other subjects as well. So we highly recommend. That application is due, I think, on the 1st. So you have to get it done today. So that is one of those, get that application done today if you would like to have access to Conmigo throughout the school year. Schools that are Dear F letter grades will be eligible without having to do the application. We are providing that for them. But it's $10 per student for any other school to use Conmigo with a minimum of 250 students. So, and that's through the Direct Services Grant, Student Services Grant. There are additional direct student services that you can apply for in that grant. One of them is math or literacy coaching. And you have several options for who you'd like to. You can use whoever you'd like to for that math or literacy coaching. There are a couple options listed in the grant, but you can apply to use anybody that does math and literacy coaching to use that. Again, we're really looking at a price point per student, so you need to get a lot of bang for your buck in order to get one of these grants. Another option is ACT Prep. So you can use it for ACT Prep, for Conmigo, for, now I'm forgetting my list of things you can use it for math and literacy coaching. I think that's it. Okay. So again, that application is due this weekend. So that's one of those things, if you want to have access to that, you need to get the application done today and submitted. The next one I have is federal identification for school improvement. As with new letter grades, we also have new federal identifications that will be coming out. Some of the identification cycles we have changed slightly. The ATSI, which is for subgroup populations. So if you have a subgroup that is in the bottom 5%, on various things. So on their CAS score, what we call their CAS score, those are only going to be identified. They'll have a 6-year exit window. So the next time that they will be identified will not be until 2028. Okay, so the ATSI will be, or sorry, the new identifications, don't happen until 2028. And that's when those would be elevated to CSI, to the comprehensive, if they do not exit by that date. The CSI, which is the comprehensive school improvement for low achievement, has changed to a 3-year window. So it used to be you had 4 years to get out, otherwise you went into more rigorous options. That is changing to a 3-year. We're trying to get all of the identifications synced to every 3 years instead of this rotating, this one's 3 years, this one's full, where we're all guessing what identifications are coming each year. So we're trying to get all of them synced to every 3 years. We have identification windows. So if you were identified for a CSI low achievement in 2022, you will be elevated to more rigorous options this fall if you haven't exited, if you don't exit this year. And those will be released in the coming, I think we should have them ready to go next month. So I think we'll have the early ideas by the beginning of next week, but then have them official by September 15th is the goal. I also work with the Office of Indian Education, and we have an event coming up. This one again is very time sensitive. We have an event coming up next week with the Office of Indian Education, the annual summit. We do still have some spaces available, and it's for both administration, teachers, parents, and students that work with tribal students or tribal students. So these are all for really focused on helping our students, our Native American students. As we begin to look at the data coming in from last year, we have been really excited to see a big increase in the performance of our Native American students this year. So we're seeing, particularly in our districts that serve a large population of Native American students, we're seeing a real uptick in their achievement. And so that's been some really exciting good news out of this school year. And you'll see more of that as we uncover the data and get more solid numbers moving forward. But we're excited to see that. So this summit will be a little bit of a celebration of that, but also we'll be looking forward to how we continue to see that improvement and how we continue to work with those students. And then how many of you are familiar with Project Momentum? I think most of you are familiar with it. We are going to have an upcoming GEARS training for principals and superintendents who have experience in Project Momentum to become principal partners and district coaches. So we have an upcoming training that is going to be on September 9th. Those lessons they'll be virtual. So that's on September 9th. So if you're interested in becoming a principal partner or district coach, or if you have principals or superintendents around you that you think would make a great principal partner or district coach, please recommend them to come do this training. Once they do the training, they'll then have to answer the RFP to become a principal partner or district coach, and then they would be placed for the next school year. But we're excited to have more and more Arizona superintendents and principals become district coaches and principal partners. And we really believe we have the talent here in the state to run this program and to really do an outstanding job with it. So please make recommendations or come yourself if you're interested. That's September 9th. It is capped, so sign up as soon as possible. If you need more information on that, reach out to me and I can get you the information. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the comprehensive needs assessment graphs. In the past, we've been struggling to get them done at the beginning of the school year or the beginning of the calendar year. This year, we started them very early. I was going to show you some of the prototypes right now of what we've been working on, but I can't link in, so I can't show you that. But a few of the new features are instead of the bands being just colors across the screen, the dots will actually show up in the color that they are in. So you'll be able to see a lot more easily what band yours is in. We also have a longitudinal graph that will show your math and English achievement proficiency for the last 3 years. So you'll be able to see the ups and downs over the past years. And you'll be able to filter those grades by things, or those graphs by things like grade level and ethnicity and some other things. The proficiency graph, for example, you can also just see the grade levels in your school. So for example, if you are a middle school, you know that if you compare yourself to all K-8s, it's not a great comparison. We know that proficiency is higher at 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then it kind of starts to drop 6th, 7th, 8th. So now you'll be able to compare yours just to other 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So you'll be able to really do an apples to apples comparison of just looking at other schools that serve that age students. So that's pretty exciting. The longitudinal one is fantastic. You really get to see, like if you had a new teacher at one grade and you see a dip or a growth, you can really tell because you can look at it by grade level. So it's kind of fun to see some of that. The other happy accident that occurred is, and I make these graphs. We actually had worked with an outside company or an outside group to try and make these, and we've run into all kinds of problems with data sharing and issues. So the last couple of years, what has happened is last minute, I ended up doing them myself. This year, I just planned on doing them myself. So we've been able to do some extra things. One of the things that has been requested is a growth graph. And so as I was creating the first growth one, I'm using SGP, so it's the student growth percentile. I'm not using the growth points, I'm using the actual student growth percentile. And as I started to make that, I based it off of the proficiency graph that had the dots colored by high, medium, high, medium, low, and low. And when I first made the graph for growth, I hadn't changed the colors yet. And so the graph looks a little bit like somebody vomited confetti onto the screen, but you can actually see growth and proficiency on the same graph. So what it looks like is it's like the scatter plots you've seen, but you'll see where your school is compared to the regression line on growth, and the color will indicate the proficiency band that they're in. And so you can tell if your school is, you'll see, for example, the colors go purple, blue, yellow, and orange. So you'll see some yellow and oranges above the regression line in the growth graph. Those are schools that have low proficiency but are really growing their students. Alternatively, you will see some blues and purples below the growth line. Those are schools that have kids coming in highly proficient but are not doing a good job growing them. And then you'll see some blue and purple that are way up above the line that are taking good students and really growing them. And you'll see some yellow and orange that are taking students who are behind and not growing them. And so it's a really interesting graph. We've decided to leave it as is with just putting a legend on it for the colors. But it's a fascinating graph because you really get to see, are we actually, if our kids are behind, are we actually growing them at a rate that they need to grow to catch up? And so expect the original, we're going to release preliminary graphs. I'm hoping to release the preliminaries by October 1st this year, and give you some time to look at them, fix any data errors that you might see, and then have the finalized ones hopefully by November 1st. So that's what I have for you so far. If you want to catch me later, I can show you what we have. I do have them on my computer, but you're welcome to come look at them a little bit. Any questions? Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, next up is David Verdugo with an AIA update.
Good morning to everyone. I've been the AIA liaison from ASA for about a year now, and last spring we were tasked with hiring a new executive director, and we were very fortunate to select Dr. Jim Dean, who's been doing a great job for us. And so I've asked him to kind of give us an update of his first 60 days because he officially took over July 1. And so I've asked him to kind of give an update of what's happening and how he's supporting our 282 school members, including, I know he has an ambitious thing, which I think he'll share, they're calling Blitz 282, which he's visiting, or the team is visiting all 282 schools. So I know he's working real hard, but I'd like to introduce Jim Dean.
Hey, good morning. I always enjoy coming to ASA because it's great to see so many former colleagues and catch up. Well, I hope you're outstanding. It's good to see you. So thank you, David. And he stole a little bit of my thunder there about Blitz 282. And that's an initiative that we have undertaken at the AIA this year, where we're sending 6 members of our team out and about in the state to visit every school that we have in the state. And we believe this is a really important component for a couple of things. We're just not taking much time at the schools. 30 minutes or so. And sometimes it's hard for us to get in and out in 30 minutes because folks want to keep us longer and tell us great things, but we want to hear the great things that are happening at each school. We want to hear the great athletic stories. We want to see your outstanding facilities. And the most important part of Blitz 282 is we want to know how we can better meet the needs of each one of our schools. And so that's what we're up to in terms of this piece, and looking forward to great things. We're going to accomplish that piece by the end of September, first week in October. As a matter of fact, I believe that I am scheduled to be on the Navajo Reservation for 3 days at the first week of October to catch all of the schools. Why 3 days? There's a lot of distance between those schools. And so we're looking forward to doing that. We've also just finished a project in which we partnered with the Trust about 3 years ago. When I was still in Dysart as a superintendent, the Trust contacted me when they found that I was going to be going to the AIA as the Associate Executive Director, and asked if we would be interested in partnering with them on a piece that they believe would really impact student safety and help the Trust member school districts as well. And that's on hazing. The Trust indicated to us that the number one claim that they pay out is related to hazing, and more specifically hazing as it relates to high school athletics. And so after about a year and a half of working with the Trust, we rolled out last week a new course that all of our student athletes will be required to take to be cleared to participate athletically. And that course is on hazing. It's a 23-minute interactive course that takes students through a little bit of a real-life scenario that's in a fictional setting. Like I said, it's interactive. It goes through the laws. It goes through reporting requirements. And more importantly, it goes through responsibilities of keeping our student athletes safe. So that's just one more aspect that we're taking to make sure that we add layers of safety for our student athletes. One other piece that we did this year, which is brand new, is that we are requiring those who request an AIA media pass. So those who are wanting to get on sidelines, get courtside access to interview athletes, student athletes, and coaches, are now required to undergo a background check or get a DPS fingerprint clearance card. That's brand new, and I want to applaud the media because they fully embraced and supported this piece as we move forward. And we had one group push back on the western edge of the state, in one of the river districts, and they said, well, we're not going to do it. And we said, no problem, you're not coming to our games. Or you can pay to get in and sit in the stands. Either way works for us. But we want to make sure that when we're giving unfettered access to interview kids, most of whom are minors, right, that they are safe and that we have another layer of safety involved there. Not that we had a ton of concerns, but the former educator in me comes out too often when we look for ways to keep our kids safe. And so, ironically, and I hope that this isn't some nefarious thing from the past, we have less requests this year for AIA media passes than we've had in a long time. And so perhaps some of the riffraff is choosing to do something else and not be involved in that capacity. So we are excited about that. Just a couple of last things, and I will get out of your way and let your presentations and your meeting continue. We are working to make sure that our website is up to date, that our bylaws are reflective of what the current bylaws are. And so if you get people, whether it be board members or community members, asking you questions about the AIA or things that they found online about the AIA, encourage them to go to our website and get it directly from the source. The internet isn't always the most reliable source of information for up-to-date components, and we continue to clean that up and make sure that we're good to go. The final thing I want to talk to you about today is just a very light topic, and that's the topic of ESA students playing athletics. So we get a lot of questions about ESA students and how is that handled with the AIA. So what I will tell you is that since the inception of the ESA program, 7 years ago or so at this point in time, right? Since the beginning of the ESA program, the AIA has been consistent in its application and enforcement as it relates to ESA students. And here's what it is. The first piece is that we give local control to the schools to determine, to school districts, whether they accept ESA students to participate. Let me rephrase that. Whether they allow ESA students to try out for athletic teams on their campus. It's a local control decision. Okay, that's the first thing to note. The second thing to note is that should a school district choose to do so, the ESA student may not be enrolled in any other school. And what we find is a lot of parents who contact our office who are on ESAs will say to us, well, no, my kid is homeschooled. Great. Tell us, can they graduate from somewhere? Well, yeah, they're going to get a diploma from X online school. Yeah, that's not homeschool. And then we define what that is. So if a student, if a school district chooses to allow ESA students to participate, that ESA student must be schooled at home and not part of another school, enrolled in another school system. It's okay if parents purchase curriculum, that's no problem whatsoever, or if they're part of a homeschool co-op where they get together, but if they can produce a transcript from a school, they're enrolled in a school somewhere. And that's how the AIA has implemented that piece of it from its inception. One other thing I'll say, and I'll get just a second, Barb, is that the other thing that is allowed with AIA rules is that the local school district may charge a fee as allowed by the law. I believe there are several different fees throughout the state for school districts who allow this. The largest district in the state is the Mesa Public School District. They charge students $2,000 per sport to participate. I asked them last year, how many ESA students do you have, being the largest school district in the state, that were trying out for athletics? The answer was 8. It currently is not a widespread, large-scale piece, however, continues to gain momentum in conversations. Barb?
Jim, first of all, thank you for the phone call the other day. Slowly becoming an expert. So you have you said kind of that litmus test of if because there's a difference between being homeschooled and learning.
Correct. Yeah.
So when you say where will you get your diploma, but the fuzzy thing is, and maybe the IA has no stance on this, is that we have some micro schools, some tutoring schools, and the ESA handbook requires them to be accredited, or that if they're a single thing, they can produce a high school diploma. So our question from the board and from our leadership team is that little micro school is not going to issue a diploma.
Correct.
Supposedly they're accredited, but any guidance on how we handle really just all these kids really learning?
Yeah.
Because we don't know, and our kids, I've never had a homeschool parent or a parent learning from home coming not eligible to speak because they haven't seen
Sure.
it.
Right.
And so
Right.
I don't. Or my kids are tremendous.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So Barb, So Barb's question is, how do we handle the academic component of students who, and I'll extend that even to the homeschool law, right? That allows homeschool students on an affidavit to try out at their boundary school. How do you know that they're learning? How do you know that they're making academic progress and those kinds of things? The first thing I was going to jokingly say back to you is I don't do that anymore, Barb. I don't know the answer to that question. Right. However, what I will say, and I'll refer to the homeschool statute, and that is that in the homeschool statute, it states that students that would be participating in your school district as homeschool students are required to produce the same information as it relates to grade reports, those kinds of things. So back in my former days, when we would ask folks, really the ESA question is really solved with when they come in and they want to participate. If you allow it, great. Can you produce do you have a transcript from where you're going, or what you're currently doing? If they bring a transcript in, that usually is a disqualifier in the ESA conversation because they're enrolled somewhere. If they come in with a handwritten transcript from mom and dad, that's usually a pretty good indicator that they're schooling at home, right? And they're good to go. But to answer your question directly, what we would advise schools is that whatever your process is for assuring that students are passing their classes. By the way, big difference between the NCAA and the AIA is our kids have to go to school. So that's side note, whole different side note. But just so if you have a 2-week grade check for your kids, then those students should be bringing in a grade from their parents every 2 weeks. It is not athletically, it is not your responsibility to verify that from our perspective. How you do that on the other end is up to you.
And I would just add, maybe for people who have done this, Mesa charges $2,000 per tryout. And when we calculated what we spend on each athlete, it's $2,000 a year out of that fund. So that's not out of the realm of what it costs. And that doesn't include maintaining the fields, the courts, the water, the electricity, our team's time. It just is everything else that it costs.
When we calculated that in Dysart a few years back, it was right around that number. So, yep, which you're obviously supplementing with ADM, right? So, yeah, so very good. So, listen, the last thing I want to let you know of is we are here to help. And so, if in any way, shape, or form we can ever be of assistance to you, please don't hesitate to give me a call. If it's an easy question, my name is Jim Dean. If not, I would direct you to the Deer Valley School District Superintendent, Curtis Finch, and he'll be able to answer all your questions. Thanks for the time today. You guys have a great day.
All right. Next, we will have Miss Terry Clark with Read On Arizona.
Thank you. Boy, it is hard to follow sideline access tickets and all sorts of those things. But good morning, everyone, and thank you to Paul. Oh, sure, I'll take the clicker. I won't make you do that. Thank you. And Rebecca and everyone for getting me on the agenda and letting me talk to you about literacy this morning. I know you all have your time is precious, and I just wanted to update you on the launch of the Arizona Literacy Plan was last month in July, and we are out there talking and building up momentum and really honestly building up an understanding of what it takes to build a reader, and what it takes to do your job and everyone on your campus's job, so that we have a better understanding of how the state can support you. So with that, Read On Arizona is really, think of us as the literacy tent. We're sort of the umbrella for literacy in Arizona, a collaboration across the state. I sort of say everyone should see themselves under that tent. And over the last year, we have worked across the state with hundreds of stakeholders to get input and feedback on what the Arizona Literacy Plan 2030 key priorities should be. And so I'm just going to really give you a high-level overview. Couple things that the plan, the feedback we got were anchored in is how important early reading is to student success and to that graduation milestone and to really honestly the workforce. And also building up an understanding of, even though we're not anywhere near where the 95% says we could be, but the science really does demonstrate that almost all kids can learn to read, and big but is, but they have to have the right supports and services as early as possible, right? So big anchor in the literacy plan is that starting early is essential, and third grade is not the earliest grade we need to start at, and the early years are a critical part of that. So again, I hope you see a lot of things that support the work. And another question I get all the time as the Arizona Literacy Director is, why is this so complicated? Why is it so hard? I learned to read. And so this visual is something new that we created specifically for the plan, because I wanted especially our policy leaders and state leaders to see all the skills and steps involved in becoming a reader. And I say, and you can't jump from step 1 to step 4. You can't jump, you have to acquire each of those skills. When we show them this visual, they kind of get quiet. So again, this is really all that you and everyone on your campus is working towards. And it is complicated and it is hard. And not all students acquire those skills at the same time as easily. And for many of those reasons, it is a complicated process that we're working towards. So we're really hopeful that this will help sort of level set the conversation. But I'm really excited because out of the feedback across the state from many of our education partners and community partners, 4 key drivers were identified that are really guiding and anchoring the plan. And no surprise, you'll see building educator capacity in the science of reading, leaning into evidence-based solutions. So much of what you do in your literacy plans is exactly that. Strengthening families and communities so they can support a child's language and literacy development, and then increasing access to high quality early learning opportunities. We say at Read on Arizona, it takes 8 years to build a reader, and half of that starts before they enter kindergarten. So with that, also we did a national landscape of what states have been making the most progress in early literacy. And I know many of you have heard of that supposed Mississippi miracle that took them 10 or 15 years to pull off, and a number of other states. We did a 3-year learning exchange with Mississippi, so we understand what those key drivers were, and we did that actually almost 7 years ago, so we were on to that. And what we identified for Arizona from feedback from stakeholders was what we're calling 5 scale to succeed strategies. A number of these strategies are the things Mississippi and every other state in that southern surge has been doing for a few years now. One is just making sure that our teachers have the knowledge and access to high quality training and literacy instruction, and sustaining that K-5 literacy endorsement. The second one is actually one that some really interesting research has popped up of states that have science of reading and literacy policies on the books. If they had a foundational literacy coaching, a coaching strategy where funding was going to support literacy coaches, they have made the most growth. So we really put that front and center, that literacy coaches, especially in the highest need parts of our state and schools with the highest percentage of struggling readers, is sort of not optional for us if we're really serious about this. Then also basically something that's been a part of the policy from the beginning and the passing of Move On When Reading is just having high quality instructional materials. So we're getting close, but we don't have 100% of our schools using high quality instructional materials yet. And then we'll never forget about our little ones, our 3 and 4-year-olds. So we're keeping that front and center on increasing access. And then many of you in the room, or some of you, have been helpful on one of the factors that we discovered, especially coming out of the pandemic, that was really sort of causing us to sort of not make the progress, was a high rate of chronic absence in the state. Arizona, unfortunately, 3 years ago, had the highest rate of chronic absence in the country. Almost 34% of our students were missing 18 or more days of school. So a task force was formed, resources and tools and materials were created, professional development. We just hosted on Wednesday, was that yesterday? We hosted an attendance summit for schools and districts here in Phoenix, and we're going to try to do more of those. But there was some really great conversation about real strategies and what works. And we are thrilled. Sometimes a school will send me their chronic absence plan, and it has such great collaboration, but also really concrete strategies. So we are excited to adopt a 50% goal to get us back to pre-pandemic levels, and we're actually currently on track for that 50% goal. So we'll need all of you to help, and any help we can be to you. So I'm going to keep us moving. We're actually going to track each of those Scale to Succeed strategies. So no more just keeping the end of the progress meter goal as the ultimate goal, absolutely. But we're going to track these Scale to Succeed strategies and see how we're doing. You can see some we're not where we need to be yet, but we sort of knew it had a long runway on the endorsement. We're at about 10%. 2028 need to be at 100%. A number of those will be happening, and it's already starting to see 500 in a month. So I think we'll be getting closer to that. We're also not where we need to be on literacy coaches, and you're going to hear us being very loud about the fact that we need more investment in that, and we need to make sure that we're giving you the resources and the tools and the people that you need to be able to deliver that high quality literacy instruction. And then of course those goals of chronic absence, reducing that, and trying to get more access for our little ones so they can have the chance to come in more ready as they enter kindergarten. Oops, sorry. I was quick on that. The other thing we're going to be echoing is something you all know, but I think our leaders sometimes forget, is that progress takes time. Nothing happens overnight. We have to be focused, consistent, and intentional about this work. We want to help you do that. The other part of the plan that I'm the most excited about is that we created this plan. It's very public. There's a website. I'll give you that at the end. But we are encouraging partner action commitments and partners to see themselves in the plan. And so by driver, you can submit action commitments and they'll get loaded up onto the site. And you yourself might want to look and see if there's a community member that's doing work or committed to something in a key driver that you're interested in and supporting, because your literacy plans and the work you do is reflected in the plan overall. As I told you, we have key goals and milestones each year up to 2030, and we're going to continue to keep trying to build momentum around achieving each of those. And then, as I said, the plan lives on a website. It's public. You've just seen a sneak peek. It's a much longer plan. There's a PDF you can download. You can search the plan by driver or by partner. And we would welcome any questions, but also just want to know how we can be most helpful, because you and everyone on your campuses are the ones that are making this happen every day, and we want to make you feel supported. I didn't want to go too long, so yes. I think that's a great question for ADE. I think that the Arizona Department of Education has some guidance on that and on their website. And if you give me your card, I can make sure to get you to the right place on that. That they are providing guidance that special ed teachers are, qualifying under that endorsement. They're defined in that. Mm-hmm. Right, so that's why the ADE is giving that. Yeah. There was a bill that ran last year that helped. It's always been in the original legislation, and then it just clarified it last year. But I believe ADE is giving that guidance, so they're giving support on what that means and how you do that. So, yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time.
my paper went away. Just make sure I didn't miss it. All right. And last but not least, we have our legislative issues, and we have Miss Rebecca Beebe here to share.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's nice to be here with you all this morning. There's a QR code here if you want to take out your phones to take our advocacy priority survey. This was sent out to the entire membership. It's for ASA members to take. And we are going to be finalizing our legislative, or I'm trying to refer to it now as the advocacy agenda. So you'll hear me saying advocacy instead of legislative or public policy. So I'm just waiting so everyone, I see phones out, so everyone can get a picture of that. This was, if you're online, I can send you a link to the survey. This was sent out to the membership a few weeks ago. So we've had about 100 people respond. So that's a great response. We would love some more. It's open for a few more days until September 12th. I'm trying to stall so I can see everyone getting their pictures. I hope the back to school is great. I can actually answer the question that was asked about the special ed teachers. My understanding is that the law required folks who teach in elementary school to get the endorsement from a while ago, and then a cleanup clarification bill was ran. Bruce is shaking his head. Maybe I'm not quite getting it right. A cleanup clarification bill was ran that said that educator prep programs for special ed have to embed the literacy stuff into their programs. So when someone now graduates from a special ed teacher prep program at a university or program in Arizona, they will be qualified to get that endorsement. Okay, I see ADE nodding their head. The original bill said all special ed teachers, as it was introduced, said all special ed teachers have to go get the endorsement. And then there was some negotiation between the Teachers Association. Yeah.
So it's my old certification hat. So the original bill and rule stands. If they're a teacher of literacy in K-5, they have to have the endorsement. So regardless of who they are, SPED, Gen Ed, if they are responsible for teaching and reading instruction, literacy, they have to have the endorsement. That stands. The bill from last year, the prior only ed preps in elementary and early childhood had to have the training embedded to prepare them. The bill last year added it to special ed programs. Nope, that's not what I said. Ed preps, the first bill, ed preps had to incorporate training to prepare them for the endorsement. That was elementary and early childhood. That's the only ed preps that were required. The bill last year requires special ed programs to also prepare their educators to meet the endorsement requirements. That's one block. The other block is anybody who teaches in K-5 and is responsible for literacy instruction must have the endorsement.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce. Okay, so back to the advocacy update. I see most people's phones have been put away, so I think everybody got the link that wanted it. So we're finalizing our advocacy priorities on September 12th for the superintendents that are on the legislative committee. We'll be together that day going over the results of the survey. So please complete that. Just a reminder that the legislative session starts the second Monday in January. So that's where we're at. We're preparing for that big timeline. Just quick update regarding the state legislatures. We have a new Senate Education Committee chair. Senator Hildy Angus, who is from Bullhead City, is the new chair of the Senate Ed Committee. The former chair, David Farnsworth from Mesa, he stepped down from the chair of that committee to be the chair of the Appropriations Committee. So we worked closely with David Farnsworth last year on education. I know there's several superintendents in the room that are on his Monday morning stakeholder calls. I do believe he will continue those, but they will turn into an appropriations type of call. And Hildy Angus will be serving as the Senate Ed Chair. So we have a meeting, Paul and I scheduled with her for later this fall to talk with her. I know her, Mark Barnes knows her well. She is a former county supervisor from Mojave County. So some of our school folks in that area may know her from that role as well. The school facilities lawsuit. Sorry, I always forget that the screen is behind me. We had a webinar yesterday with the attorneys who worked on the school facilities lawsuit. I'm sure you saw in the news that the judge ruled in our favor. So the judge ruled that the Arizona finance system for school capital is unconstitutional. The judge found that the state is not ensuring that all school districts meet the minimum adequacy guideline standards, and that the current funding system is creating disparities between districts. So it was two important things. One, that the system that is created is not keeping schools to a minimum standard, and two, that the system that was created is actually the source of the inequities among districts. So examples, if you're a superintendent, you certainly have, this is very familiar to you, and other people in the business office maybe, but we all know the building renewal grant is severely underfunded every single fiscal year. There's really important projects that are deferred. Schools are not inspected every 5 years like they're supposed to be, as required by law. New school construction dollars are not enough to build a modern school, et cetera. So this is all stuff we know. Really, the ruling talked about how underfunded and understaffed the SFOB is. So this results in districts relying on their local tax base through bonds and maybe overrides to pay for really basic stuff to keep them compliant with the minimum adequacy guidelines. And the judge did find that this is the responsibility of the state, and because of the way they have set up the system, the inequities and disparities from districts come from this reliance on the local tax base. Basically, the quality of your school is dependent on your property wealth. So what's next? So basically, I wanted to put this up here. What's next and what's the message? So we met as plaintiffs, and we believe the message is that the state is responsible for paying for both the construction and the maintenance of school buildings to a statewide minimum standard. This is nothing new for the state. They went through a similar lawsuit in the 90s, which is what resulted in the capital finance system we have. Students First passed in the 90s, did several things. It brought every school in the state up to a minimum standard. It corrected all the deficiencies. It created a building renewal formula, so districts were getting preventative maintenance dollars, and it funded the new construction of schools and created minimum adequacy guidelines. Shortly after all of that was created, the state started defunding and repealing those programs, where we're now basically on a grant basis with the department. The judge also noted important things like roof replacement were, frequently deferred. So that's great news, but it's a long path forward. And I thought it would be helpful to cover some of this because I don't usually do federal updates, but getting a lot of questions about federal stuff. So I wanted to cover what's happening at the U.S. Department of Ed. So Trump issued an executive order on March 20th called Improving Education Outcomes by Empowering Parents, States, and Communities. This executive order directs the Secretary of Education, which is Secretary McMahon, to take all of the necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education as allowed by law. So remember, the Department of Education was created by Congress under President Jimmy Carter. It has statutory duties it has to carry out, and so the executive is not allowed to just close it. An executive order tells agencies how to interpret the law. So the U.S. Ed work, this is where I think it's relevant to this group. If you work with the U.S. Department of Ed specifically in your role, you may have noticed the workforce is significantly smaller. So it was about 3,100 people in D.C. at regional offices across the country. In total, a buyout offered to federal employees and a major reduction in force following the executive order to close the department eliminated about a half of U.S. Ed's staff. So there's a lot less people working in D.C. You may have noticed this in your community. A group of stakeholders did sue the administration in a Massachusetts court, arguing that the RIF was essentially the same as an elimination of the agency because the agency isn't adequately staffed to function and carry out its statutory duties. A federal judge in Massachusetts agreed. This may be familiar from the news, right? They agreed with those stakeholders and issued an injunction against the RIF, but the administration asked the High Court to undo it, and in McMahon versus New York, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that U.S. Ed can proceed with its reduction in force. So for a lot of the staff at U.S. Ed, their last day was August 1st. I wanted to cover the Office of Civil Rights. This is probably remedial for a lot of you in this room. You're familiar with OCR and what OCR is tasked with, but just in case, I want to make sure I cover really what this means. So the Office of Civil Rights is a sub-agency within USED, and it enforces federal civil rights laws. It investigates complaints, monitors compliance, and essentially ensures that students aren't discriminated against. I know sometimes we agree with OCR, sometimes we don't, sometimes we find the investigations frustrating, but that's what makes a public school a public school. That's what differentiates us from private schools, is that we have to abide by federal civil rights laws. And so I think it's a good reminder for all of us and our stakeholders to just remember what we're talking about. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title IX, Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 504, which came around in 1973, the Boy Scouts of America Equal Access Act, which essentially protects against religious discrimination, and the Age Discrimination Act of 1975. So through all this rhetoric about DEI and CRT and what's happening in schools, I think it's good for us to just take a step back and remember that these are civil rights laws that, certainly are way older than I am, and probably people in this room. I shouldn't start making jokes about age. I'll stop right there. But we've been operating under these civil rights laws for decades and decades. This is nothing new. So OCR offices were closed in Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Dallas, New York, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. And obviously, you guys know through your work, this has an impact on kids with special needs too. So the work at OCR essentially came to a halt. They did start investigating some DEI stuff. And just wanted to note that there is a separate lawsuit that challenged the RIF specifically in OCR. And there's a separate June order from a federal judge saying they have to reinstate almost all of the OCR staff. And USED is in the process of doing that. None of them have been reinstated yet. But USED does have to file weekly court filings, and they have said that they will be reinstating staff next month. So if you're wondering why communications or anything is slower coming from USED, this could be why. I also wanted to quickly cover the federal tax credit program. So the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed by Congress and signed by Donald Trump creates a permanent uncapped dollar-for-dollar tax credit for individuals up to $1,700 to support private school tuition, and select expenses for public schools. So the U.S. Department of Treasury is writing the rules. Those rules could further regulate this program. Those rules could prohibit further regulations of this program. So governors can opt in. Legislators can also run legislation to opt into this program. So the tax credit is an individual donating to what they're calling a scholarship granting organization. Scholarship granting organizations have to be 501c3 organizations that distribute scholarships to eligible students for private school tuition. We have something like this in Arizona called STOs. Our school tuition organizations. Arizona has a dollar-for-dollar tax credits for individuals and businesses to donate to private school tuitions via these STOs. So they're nonprofits set up for the purpose of distributing scholarships. So we really already have the infrastructure in Arizona to do this. It says that the federal law says that SGOs must not be a private foundation. They can keep up to 10% for administrative expenses, which is true of Arizona's STOs as well. And they must verify household income for eligibility. And donors are not supposed to be able to direct scholarships to specific students. Students in families that make up to 300% of the average median income are eligible for scholarships. This is about 98% of American families. So for public schools, so the law does permit SGOs to collect donations, basically for anything that you can use a Coverdell education savings account on. These SGOs can go as scholarships to students to use for Coverdell expenses. So that includes things like tuition, fees, books, technology, tutoring, laptops, stuff like that. So we had some questions from superintendents on this program and how it works with public schools. Right now what we know is that the federal law does allow these SGO scholarships can be given to public and private school students. So I don't know if it's something a school could set up, parents from a school could set up an SGO, but we just haven't seen how these work with public school students yet. We have a lot of understanding of how they work covering private school tuition. So that's where we are on that, and we are waiting for further information from our federal partners who right now are watching for the U.S. Treasury and what rules they put out. I will note that there's 3 states like Arizona. Arizona has a conservative legislature and a Democratic governor, as does Kentucky and North Carolina. North Carolina's legislature ran a bill to opt them into this tax credit program, and their Democratic governor vetoed it. So I assume that the Treasury is trying to write rules to get around a situation like that, but we don't know. There's just a lot of unknown right now, but we certainly will be following this and keeping our membership informed. And that is my last slide, so I'm happy to take questions. I see Scott has one if I have time.
So I appreciate this, and I just want to seriously consider the new tool that this represents for us. I just was doing the math in Scottsdale, so we, since COVID, have averaged a little more than $2 million in Arizona tax credits, which that's $200 to $400 per family. This would be $1,700, so you're talking 3 to 4 times as much that you can generate pretty easily at no cost to the taxpayer, because that $1,700 per dollar is a tax that they already owe, but now it can be spent locally. So I would hope that we wouldn't, because of concerns about its supporting vouchers, cut off our legs for a potential revenue stream that's no tax to our taxpayers. It's just an education effort. If in fact we can use it for all those purposes under the.
Should I repeat that? Scott Menzel from Scottsdale said he hopes that we would not oppose this because it's a voucher program when it could benefit school districts. He noted the $200, $400 Arizona public school tax credit generated. Was it $2 million for Scottsdale, Scott? Yes. $2 million for Scottsdale.
So if 2,000 of my employees did this, 2,000 of them had a $1,700 or more federal tax liability. We 3.4 million just with my employees alone. That's not going outside to our community. It's real money.
Scott mentioned that the $1,700 per employee, if you got every employee to donate, that would be a lot. I would just say this will probably operate similar to other tax credits. It's dependent on the person's ability to donate and whether or not they have tax liability. So that's the thing, to keep in mind. Our federal partners have put out guidance. They have suggested that states adopt policies that require anybody who takes this money, private or public school, to abide by the same civil rights protections that schools have to abide by. So they've put out a lot of guidance on that. It's highly political. We have a lot of folks coming out and opposing it out the gate because it is public funds going to private schools, and so it's something we'll continue to talk about here at ASA. So that's the end of my update. I think I have 1 minute for questions, if there's any other questions or comments. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Okay, I think we're gonna get the rooms ready for our division meetings, and you can see where each of the divisions are up here on the board. Do we need to